Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to the Friday night edition of Spaced Out Radio Tonight. My name is Dave Scott. My hair is slicked back, and we got Debbie Solaris coming up. We're going to get into everything from ET contact to the communication to the Galactic Federation and everything in between. It is going to be an amazing night. I hope you all sit back, relax, and enjoy it as much as I know I am going to. And let's say hello to each and every one of you. We have Race Fan in the gold medal position, Tim Mothman in his goatee with a silver, Kitty Caddywhack sitting in the bronze medal position tonight. Let's say hello to the rest of you. We got Frankie B. We got Stephanie Kenny Blankenship. Keith McCormick, how you doing? Keith McCormick will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio, right over there. All right, Mama Catherine, I love you, my dear. Hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful night. And the audio is sounding great after we fixed it. Thank you, guys. T-Bone, my man, how's it going, my friend? Good to have you here. David Norenberg, good to see you. As we continue on with our roll call, there's Rock and Rory and Thomas Rock. Ethanol, Kurt W75, how you doing? Cosmic Joe, thanks for coming on in. Hippie Deidre, always a pleasure to have you here. What are you carpooling with? Of course you're carpooling. You're a hippie. Of course you are. Izzy Beth has returned. Izzy Beth will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Millennium a Man, Carol Amario, J Truth Seeker. How y'all doing? Good to see you. Number 47 in your program tonight. Starting at right wing from Stockholm, Sweden, Lars Jansson. The lovely Deanna Ann, nice to have you back as we continue on with our roll call. Here we go. Scrolling on down, who is next here? Alien Critter, good to have you here, my friend. Roger, how's it going? Davey's on the road again, wearing a different clothes again. Yep, that's true. Silent Listen, nice to see you. Area 53, how's it going tonight? Are you still in top secret form? You got to let me know, because I am. Gizmo, my man, thanks for coming on in. So we continue on with our roll call. There's Jerry Carter. If you wave to Jerry, he'll always wave back. Yeah, he will. Marty Burback, how you doing? And who else do we have here? We are caught up. We're caught up early. Oh, there's Paramarv. Sneaking in the back door right there, Paramarv. Where's Mel WD-40? How can we lube up for tonight's show if Mel WD-40 isn't even here? This is ridiculous. Signs of Life. Welcome to SOR Chat. Hi, Carla. How are you? Debbie Solaris is our guest. We'll bring her on in about a minute, maybe 2.5 minutes. She's pumped up. She's literally working the weights as we speak. She really is. She's doing arm curls. That's what she's doing, warming on up. Got about a minute to go here. And excuse me while I take a sip of my water. I'm watching the chat room fill up as we speak. It's one of the entertaining things that I have. There's Mel WD-40 lubing us up for tonight's show because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. You don't want any of that rigidness going on. So thank you, Mel, for the lube tonight, even though you were a little bit late. Area 53, thank you for kicking off the super chat tonight. A wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you very much. Dragonfly, how are you? Let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We appreciate you tuning us in. As our guest tonight is Debbie Solaris. We are going to get into everything from ET contact and so much more. Galactic historian that she is. Once again, we want to remind our audience, as we are in roll call on YouTube, that the super chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. And don't forget, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. You can wear our stuff out in public and be proud of it. Greg Ogles, how you doing? Matthew Goodgood, Damian Wyatt, good to have you both here. And we are caught up on you great people so far. Of Central British Columbia, to you listening around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out Bumble, read the News Wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Jive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Jive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show coming at you tonight. Debbie Solaris is here. She's an ET contactee, Ascension coach, and a galactic historian. Oh, this sounds fun, doesn't it? This is right up our alley as we turn the woo up from about 3 or 4 lately. We're going to 10, 11, and 12 tonight. This is going to be so much fun. You guys are going to enjoy it. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will be here with another creepy story. Then extra small Lee Strauss comes in for the Q&A. All right, let's get right to it because I'm pumped up about tonight. I really am. Debbie Solaris is an ET contactee, galactic historian, interdimensional traveler. We're going to ask her about that. Galactic Akashic Records guide and Starseed intuitive based in Colorado. After a fateful extraterrestrial contact experience just a few years ago, Debbie awakened to her true star lineage and higher calling. Through her ancestral connection with the Akashic Records, she has been receiving downloads of galactic historical information and universal spiritual knowledge ever since. She feels that it's a big part of her interdimensional mission while here on Earth to help awaken others to their own true divine selves and cosmic origins. Her website, DebbieSolaris.com. Let's bring her on in. Debbie Solaris, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. How are you?
It's doing great. It's a beautiful, or it was a beautiful day here in Colorado. We're starting to see little signs of spring, so it's always a good thing. And yes, I am flying that woo-woo freak flag as we speak. So I like what you said about turning up the woo-woo because we're definitely going to get into some of that today. Yeah.
Oh, just put it in a needle and inject me with it. That's all I want. I love the woo. And you know what? I love the fact in your bio, okay, where you stated how this just happened a few years ago.
Hmm.
because last night actually was the 10th anniversary where I got called, or 11th anniversary, pardon me,
Hmm.
where I got called out at a friend's house to
Cool.
witness a UFO on the ground. And it was actually on my command turning its lights off and on. And I would never believe that if it didn't happen to me,
Hmm.
but I'll tell you, it really transformed my life. Now, you said that all started a few years ago with you.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. What happened?
Yeah, it's a it's a good story, and just like you, I probably wouldn't have believed it if it didn't happen to me, because I was so not a believer before this happened. My background is actually so I come from a military family, so we traveled a lot because my father was stationed in different locations throughout the planet, and so we know that we traveled quite a bit, and so we didn't talk about the paranormal or the occult or metaphysics or anything like that because I was raised Catholic, So, and my personal background is I am a Navy veteran, so I was in the U.S. Navy for 6 years,
Thank you for
and
that.
thank you. And I also worked in kind of the science field for quite a few years. I was an environmental health specialist, um, so I was very unwoo-woo, I guess, for a big part of my life until 2012. So 2012 was where everything changed. So just like you, I also, kind of had my experiences, later in life, So how it all happened was when I started dating my now husband, he was into the paranormal. So he would read, articles about UFOs and Sasquatch and, all the stuff that you guys talk about here on your radio show. So he's all into that. And I was like the biggest skeptic. I was just like, oh, there's no way this is real, But I would read the articles, just out of curiosity. And I think in a way it expanded my consciousness to at least entertain the idea that it might be possible. But still, if you would have told me I would have been an experiencer, back then I would have said, oh, hell no. That's just not ever would happen to me. So, a few years went by, and in 2012, I um, went. So I think it all started actually when I sent out like a nightly prayer. So I sent out this prayer to the universe, asking for assistance for planet Earth, and I was just sending out this prayer to the angels, Mother Mary. I don't know, maybe uh, the ascended masters, because that's what I, understood to be real. And then for some reason, I added in at the last minute Galactic brothers and sisters. I don't even know why I added that in, but wasn't even sure if they were real. But I just thought, what the heck, And I was basically praying for help with planet Earth. I just felt like we were going down a dark path, and things were not people weren't doing well on this planet. There was a lot of suffering, and we needed divine assistance. So I said the prayer one night, forgot about it. 2 weeks later, I went to sleep as normal, and when I came back into consciousness, I was in a completely different reality. Maybe similar to like an out of body experience. I would say that's probably what was going on, and I know it wasn't a dream because everything was hyper real. So when you have connections with higher dimensional beings, it's like you're in this hyper reality. I don't know, Dave, if you know what I'm talking about, but it's like the details are really sharp, and you can see auras around things, and the colors are brilliant. It feels more real than you and me talking here right now. And so I was looking around, and I noticed that I was inside what it looked like to be an extraterrestrial starcraft. And I was just like, wow, okay, this is different, And in a million years, I could have never imagined, something like that. It was just so advanced, and so unlike anything I ever seen in sci-fi movies. So in sci-fi movies, these crafts are always depicted as being metallic or constructed by human hands. Uh, this craft was completely comprised of light, plasma-like materials that I've never even seen before. It was very organic, but it looked like a craft. So the thing I did notice right away is that the ship had kind of its own consciousness, because it was leading me towards this space. So I was just kind of following along, and it was leading me towards the space. And then I found myself in a large room with 4 or 5 extraterrestrial beings waiting for me in this room. And I knew immediately they were extraterrestrial. They didn't look like anything you would ever see on planet Earth. And we were talking about telepathy before. I, I was still kind of processing everything, so I didn't even have time to be scared or anything like that. I just was processing everything, and I was trying to think up questions to ask these beings, and they were answering my questions as I was thinking them. So I was thinking, do they understand English? Do I, can I ask them questions? And they were answering my questions telepathically. So I was able to communicate with them telepathically. And this is common for extraterrestrial beings. They don't really speak in verbal language so much because they don't have to. They can connect with each other through telepathy. And it was a big relief for me because I had my answers, or my questions very easily answered by them. And they were almost like anticipating what I was asking, so it was sometimes they would answer my question even before I would finish the question. So obviously I was asking them, hey, where am I? What is this? So they told me that they were extraterrestrial beings from a place called Arcturus, which is the largest star in the constellation of Botez. And that, and they said the reason why they they had me there was because they had heard my prayer and they figured that I was ready to know the truth. About what was happening on planet Earth. So I, pretty much asked them a lot of questions about why are things so bad here. It's just, why is there so much control, and why are people suffering? Why is things the way they are? And they explained a lot of different things. And of course, I asked them also, like, why me? I'm nobody special. I was a environmental health specialist that worked in Colorado Springs, so, I wasn't anybody that, had any influence or anything. So I was just an ordinary person. And they told me it was because I'm a soul that came from, I'm part of their soul family. I'm a soul that came from their star system, and that I had forgotten my mission, that I was there for a mission. And at the time, I was still trying to process everything. I didn't quite understand, everything that they were telling me. But the one thing they did say about, our reality in 3D Earth is that it's a false matrix construct, that it was kind of like playing a video game. Like, we're all playing a role and we chose to be there, and it's not really real. It's an illusion. They said the word illusion several times, and I didn't quite understand that at the time, because everything, when you're in the 3D, everything seems solid, it seems real, but it really isn't real. So I found that out later. Um, but it was an incredible experience. They had me inside some sort of hologram. So sometimes when they were telepathically communicating with me, they were also illustrating like the location of their star system in this hologram. They were showing me images of future Earth, so they were showing me a lot of images of planet Earth in the future, or at least potential futures where it was like a paradise, so and I started crying at that point, asked them if it was going to be real, if that was really going to happen. And then I asked them if it was just for rich people, and they laughed at me. They had a good sense of humor. So the way these beings looked, I think I didn't get a chance to explain what they looked like, because I get that question a lot. So what I noticed immediately was that I had a hard time looking at them because their auras were really bright. It was just like I just saw a bunch of colors at first. And then as I was looking toward out of my periphery, I was seeing what they looked like. And they definitely looked alien. I mean, they looked like not quite like gray aliens. They were about my height. I'm only 5 foot, but maybe, yeah, they're probably about my height, but they had larger heads, larger eyes, but they didn't have the dark gray alien eyes. They had pupils and irises, and they had very refined, beautiful features, but they definitely looked, alien.
Right.
And from what I could tell, their skin was kind of like a bluish green, and they they didn't have any hair. They didn't have any. Even the females didn't have any hair. So they were just kind of alien-esque looking. I didn't think they were ugly or scary looking at all. They just emit a lot of this love energy. So you can't help but feel good around them. So unlike a lot of experiencers, my experience was very positive, where I just felt like I was a welcome guest, like they treated me really well, and they answered a lot of my questions about religion, about politics, about what was going on the planet, why things are the way they are. They explained my genetic connections to them, that my family is from kind of the north central region of Italy, and it was part of the Etruscan culture, that they had started the Etruscan culture. And my family actually is descended from Etruscans, so that was the genetic connection. So they went totally into who I was, truly, that I came from, an Arcturian family of souls that have chosen to be a part of the ascension process on planet Earth, which was, I mean, it was mind blowing to me, because I always thought I was human, just like I don't, I couldn't even imagine being related or connected with these beings at all. But they told me that, because I had sent out that prayer, that they felt like I was ready to be of service, that I was ready to, step into my mission. They didn't really get into what my mission was at the time. They just, I guess, they were bombarding me with a lot of other information. The cool thing was when they were showing me the images of future Earth. That was very memorable, because I basically, that was when I started crying, because it was beautiful. So future Earth, they had houses that were integrated into the environment. So there was no longer huge, massive cities. It was all kind of smaller communities, and everybody was using free energy devices. So there was no more big power or big electric anymore. And people were growing their own food. There was teleportation, so there was no need for airlines or planes, which I thought was amazing. And it just seemed like people were living in like a utopian like paradise. And I think that's why I started crying, because I really want to see that that reality happen for planet Earth. There was more to the story. So the Arcturians showed me around the ship. So I saw technologies that I couldn't even comprehend, and And then I was allowed to wander on my own. So I found myself in the centermost point of the ship. The ship was huge. It was like a city-sized craft, and there was hundreds of extraterrestrial beings on board the ship that of all different species. So I was seeing kind of like a variety of different beings. My understanding was the ship was actually located here in our solar system between the asteroid belt and Jupiter.
Right.
So that's where it was located. So they
We
told
have
me
about
where.
we have about 4 minutes to go here, and I
Yeah,
apologize for cutting you off. I wanted to ask you this question.
sure.
Being an older experiencer, like
Mm-hmm.
my experiences started when I was 38.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 51 now. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been a tumultuous 13, 14 years.
Oh,
Do you
totally.
feel you've handled this better having these experiences at an advanced age rather than say if it was happening when you were like 5, 6, 8, 10, 12?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think the timing was perfect, actually. Looking back on it now. At first I didn't understand, like why now. But I think the timing was perfect because, like I said, my consciousness was starting to expand a little bit through, reading some of my husband's interests in the paranormal. Because if that would have happened to me 20 years ago, I probably wouldn't have been able to process it. It would have just been like, oh no, I probably would have just thought it was a crazy dream and called it a day. But I had enough understanding to understand what was happening to me, and then I think because of being older, because I was just shy of 50 when I had my experience. I I think I was, because I was more mature, I was able to, handle it a lot better. So yeah, that's a good question.
What
I would
has
agree
the
with you.
what has the message 2.5 minutes to go? What
Yeah.
has the message or the biggest lesson you have learned through this process since it's happened when you were 50?
That's a good question. I would say it was more of an expansion of my consciousness, or, kind of an activation, that it was time for all of us to get activated. And I do notice that there's certain period, certain years where more people get activated than other years. And I think 2012 was one of those years, and 2020 was another one. But I also think it was a call to action, call to be of service and to help create a new reality on planet Earth.
Do you find then from learning what you've learned, I need about a 1 minute answer here.
Yeah,
Learning what
sure.
you've learned, do you find that it has not only elevated your mind, body, and soul, but it's also regressed you and I mean that in a positive way. It's regressed you in age where you feel you're going to advance in life a little bit longer rather than just saying, you know what, when I hit 75 or when I hit 78, that's where I got to prepare for the last stages of my life, like a lot of people do.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. It was a life-changing experience for me. I knew after waking up the next, morning that because I was, woke up, I was back in my bed. I didn't finish the whole story, but well, maybe in the next hour we can. But I I did notice that my extrasensory perception increased 100-fold. People tell me all the time that I'm age reversing, so I was able to cure a lot of long-standing health issues that I had, and I've been able to do beautiful work that helps a lot of people, through my, Akashic practice, Akashic reading practice. So yeah, I would say definitely it's helped me tremendously.
And on that note, we're going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break at the bottom of the hour. It's an incredible story of experience, true experience. Debbie Solaris is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. her website, DebbieSolaris.com. There's a lot of awesome history and knowledge on her website, so make sure you check it on out. This is Spaced Out Radio. The second half hour of the show comes up right around the corner. All right, we are clear. There we go. That was a fun start. Quick half hour.
Yeah. Everybody loves the ET contact stories. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Gamer Quest, how you doing? Good to see you. And we caught up there. Yeah, it's I love these stories. I love the personal encounters. To me, they are so much more than what we're hearing out of this whole disclosure movement.
Mm-hmm.
Walter, how you doing, buddy? So awesome. Brian, how you doing? I'm glad you're having fun. There. I don't know why that popped up, but that's okay. Daryl Stanley, former NHL tough guy right there. Bet you didn't know that, Daryl Stanley. All right. We got about four minutes. Hillbilly Herb, how are you? I'm very anal about saying hi to my listeners that pop in.
No, I love how you interact with them. That's really cool. It seems like you got some regulars.
Yeah, we got a few. Hold on here. Hockey DB. Let's go there. Here, Daryl Stanley, I'll put the link in to your hockey profile right there. Sorry, Shelley. What are you apologizing for, Shelley? Now I gotta scroll up and find. I don't know. Mm-hmm. All right, we're caught up. There we go. We're caught up. I'm enjoying this, Debbie. Not gonna lie, having fun here.
I'm having fun too, actually. So even though it's way past my bedtime, but having lots of fun makes it
You
worth
are
it.
doing great.
Yeah, thanks.
Got about a minute and a half. All right. Want to say a big thank you tonight so far to Area 53, Gizmo, Deidre, T-Bone, Richard, Pam, and Linda for the Super Chats. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has finally arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Uh-huh. Fantastic Six, good to see you. Blue Cruise. No, I was thinking Fantastic Six. Daryl Stanley, former NHL tough guy. Not football player Daryl Stingley. Good try, though. All right, we have about 10 seconds here. Hi, Mark. Here we go with the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're talking about the personal experiences of Debbie Solaris, leading her to who she is today. I love this lady. I love her. She is amazing. If you missed the first half hour, you're missing out. We're going to continue with her story momentarily. But first, I want to remind all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Debbie Solaris is here, her website, debbiesolaris.com. I want you to finish your story. I know I rudely interrupted you to get a couple of questions in, but I really am digging your experiences here. So please continue.
Okay, well, we're rounding out the story here with I was in this atrium and there was hundreds of beings, and they mostly looked humanoid. Some of them weren't. Some of them were kind of amphibian looking, but there was a lot of humanoid looking beings. But I could tell there were different species. At the time, I didn't know, what, but this atrium was huge. It was like several stories high. And there was like these light shafts that would transport beings to other, different parts of the atrium. And I call it a light shaft, or the light escalator. It actually looked like a shaft of rainbow light that would just transport these beings. And I thought to myself, oh, I want to go on one of those, and see what it's like. And so I kept trying to step on one and it kept throwing me off. And then there was a being that caught me after the third or fourth try. And now looking back on it, he looked Pleiadian. So it was a humanoid looking male. And he telepathically told me that the reason why it was throwing me off was because I wasn't setting an intention on where I wanted to go. So I had to let it know first where I wanted to go telepathically. So I said, okay, you know what you're talking about, and I don't, so I'm going to do it your way. So I thought about where I wanted to go in the atrium, and I stepped on this light shaft thing, and it was transporting me across. And that was when I woke up and I was back in my bed. It was like the next morning. And I had a second experience 6 months later, same ship. This time I was interacting with that Pleiadian being that was, and he told me on the second visit that he was Pleiadian. So, I knew at that point, what system he was from. And he was there with a female Pleiadian looking being. And the second visit in December, so the first visit was in May. Second visit was in December, and that one was a little more personal, and it wasn't as long lasting as the first visit. But even after the first visit, I did notice that like I had changed. I knew that my life was like when I woke up the next day, I knew that I had changed, that I wasn't the same person anymore, that somehow something got activated. And I did notice that my extrasensory perception became very finely tuned. You mentioned the interdimensional travels. Like I would be in the middle of the day and I was shifting in and out of different dimensions. That was one of the things that was happening to me. The other thing I noticed was that I was seeing UFOs all the time, like all the time. And I was telepathically communicating with some of these UFOs and never saw a UFO in my life. And then all of a sudden I was seeing them. And the other thing I was getting was massive downloads of galactic information. So I was starting to remember like things that had happened in different star systems. All of a sudden, I knew all what these different star systems, what they were called, what their history was, what their culture was, and at first I thought I was going freaking crazy. I thought, okay, I'm losing it because I don't. Where am I learning? Where did I ever learn this stuff? I mean, I don't know where I learned it. And that was what prompted me to do a lot of my own research and a lot of taking a lot of spiritual classes. This was around the time like between 2012 and 2014. So there was 2 years where I didn't talk about my experience that much with others, except for maybe my husband and a couple of friends. I didn't even tell my immediate family because I figured they'd probably call me crazy, like I was freaking nuts. They know now, but back then I was really kind of secretive because I was afraid of being ridiculed. So I just took a lot of spiritual classes. Fortunately, I live in Colorado where we have every spiritual offering there is here. I mean, I live in the Front Range just south of Denver and had access to Boulder, where there's a lot of spiritual classes in Denver and Colorado Springs and so forth. So the next 2 years was kind of like self-discovery. And I had a lot of weird experiences. Like, I noticed for a while, and I'm kind of almost ashamed to admit this, but I noticed for a while, like I was being followed by unmarked black SUVs. And then there was one time I went into my backyard of my house, and there was three black helicopters hovering over my backyard. I don't know if that's a common thing with experiencers, like if the government kind of picks up that you've had an experience. That was the only explanation I could figure out for that. But I had a lot of weird experiences. The other really weird experience, we were talking about telepathy, was I was working and I was taking a break. I was in downtown Colorado Springs. I used to work in Colorado Springs. I live just south of Denver now, um, but I ended up walking into a Starbucks, and it was a downtown Colorado Springs, so it was a very busy Starbucks. There's like 50 people in there, and I was reading everybody's thoughts. I knew what everybody was thinking at the same time, and that was freaky as heck. I was like, because a lot of people don't have positive thoughts, a lot of, unevolved, unawakened humans. They think very negatively about themselves, about other people, mostly about themselves. And I didn't like hearing that. It seemed intrusive. So I ran out of the Starbucks and I was going down the street. And as I was passing people, I was hearing their thoughts. It was weird. So I asked my guides, my higher self, please turn it off. I don't want that ability right now. Humans aren't quite ready for this yet. So I had like a lot of weird interdimensional types of experiences. And around this time, I would say around 2014, I was taking some Reiki classes locally in my hometown of Castle Rock, and I was telling my teacher about some of my experiences, my Reiki teacher, and she said, well, sounds like you're getting information from the Akashic records. And this was the first time I've ever heard about the Akashic records. And I asked her, what is that? And she said, well, they're the universal records of the universe, and we all have access to them. And I was like, And she says, I teach classes on how to read the records. And I said, seriously? I said, I got to take your classes. So that was how I got started with Akashic, doing Akashic readings, because I took my teacher's classes and I noticed I was pretty good at it. I was,
Right.
so it became like a thing that I did kind of part time. So I started off like, I never thought it would grow into what it is now. I always thought, when I first started out that, oh yeah, it's a cute hobby. I can make a little extra money, doing readings for people. And then it grew into this whole thing, that it is now. But it was cool. I mean, it kind of was like a kind of a rapid, for me, it was a very kind of I went from being very asleep to very, very awakened in like almost like one night. And I would say I had a very accelerated spiritual growth after my ET contact experience. So that's my story. I also had astro travels, so I had, you and I had talked earlier about astro traveling, and you said that you have done that along with some, you've done some remote viewing.
Remote viewing, yeah.
Yeah, and I've done remote viewing too. So it's like when you have these types of experience, everything gets activated, and you're not just an ordinary human anymore. You
Talk,
have these psychic abilities. Yeah.
yeah. Talk about that activation, though.
Yeah.
That, I mean, because a lot of people still out there believe that, UFOs and aliens are one thing, paranormal is another, consciousness is another, cryptids are another, near-death experiences are another. But when you have one major event, it really can open up the gamut to whatever the phenomena feels you can handle.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I think they're all interconnected. I don't think they're separate at all. I really believe that all of these phenomena that a lot of us have, they're all interconnected. It's all part of this, great awakening process that, a lot of us are going through. But and it happens differently for different people, so we're not all going to have exactly the same experience. Some people might have a near death experience. Other people might be visited by angels. I don't know. I mean, we all have our own different experiences, but it all leads to this expansion of consciousness. So I don't know if that was the answer you're looking for, but that's kind of how I see it, I guess. So
I agree with you. I
yeah.
agree with you on that. At any time, did you kind of take a step back and say, this is too much? I feel like I'm out of control, that I can't handle what all of this is coming at me?
Oh, totally. Often, sometimes even now I still question it, but uh, yeah, I thought, for sure that I was losing it, so that's why I did the massive amount of research, and I was reading all these books, and taking all these spiritual classes, because I just wanted an explanation on what the heck was going on. What was going on with me. And There was a period after I had my experience. So when you go into the higher dimensional realms and then you come back to the 3D, you go through like kind of a detox, or like a period of depression. I think this is very common for near death experiencers too. Like after they come back, they go through a period of depression because they've been in the higher realms. They got used to that, high vibrational frequency, and then they come back and it's 3D and it's boring and yucky, here. So there was like a 6 months period after I had my first experience where I was driving to work and I was crying on my way to work because I wish I was back on the ship, and I didn't understand what I was doing back here. I didn't understand, everything that was going on. And so you do go through kind of a rough period, even after you have these experiences.
You definitely do. How were you able to stay grounded? What made, or how were you able to control your emotions, from going on craft to having telepathic communication to being out of control? Because in the end, it is about you. It isn't about anybody else. It is about you and your life.
And it is about, I guess, your own personal, spiritual journey. It's, comes down to that, and maybe I'm creating this reality, so, but I would say what kept me grounded was, um, I think my husband to a certain extent, because after he went past the kind of the shock factor of, oh gosh, my you know my honey is telling me that she had some weird experiences. I think that kept me grounded, knowing that he believed me, and that he supported me in whatever I wanted to do. And then also, I think just with the understanding of also that there was a purpose. There was a reason why I had this experience, and that I wanted to make good use of it to some level. I wanted to use it as a means to be of service, to humanity, I guess, to people, during my one-on-ones, and also to humanity, sharing a lot this information that I was privy to, that I had access to. So I think just that, belief in the mission kept me going during times where I really doubted the experience, or I doubted myself, or I doubted this reality. So, and that's still what keeps me going, honestly. So it's I feel very fortunate to have this wonderful experience.
Did those experiences eventually resonate with your husband as well? Or has it
Yes.
strictly stuck with you?
No, I think it has had an impact on him as well. Even though he didn't experience it firsthand, I think it led to his awakening, because now he's an avid, conspiracy theorist. He does a lot of research on things that are going on behind the scenes, and so in a way, it's become a shared mission for both of us. But yeah, it has had an impact on him.
Must be some pretty interesting conversations between you two now.
Yeah, yeah, no, we have a good time with our, we
Getting
talk
back to
about
the
all kinds of things.
getting back
Sorry,
to the
go.
ETs that you had contact with, was it one particular species, or did many of them all of a sudden start reaching out for you?
I would say at first it was mainly the Arcturians. So, I mean, that's obviously the group that I would say I have the most soul connection with. But after a while, I was interacting with a lot of species of beings. So it wasn't just Arcturians, it was also the Pleiadians and Syrians and Orions, and all of them, it was the Andromedans, so it was a whole and I feel like even now, like I'm constantly being connected with new species of beings that, like pavilions and Spiccans and Polarians, and uh so I just keep getting introduced, to new species of being Tausedians, Alpha Centaurians, so it's been a fun journey. But like I said, it hasn't been an easy journey. Sometimes it's, you go through periods where you question things, or you question, what am I doing? So but I do feel like they're all part of we're all one, we're all part of the same family, we're all part of the greater galactic family. And that's the era that, we us here on earth, we're moving towards. And I love that you have this radio station where you get to share all this information and all these other people's experiences.
It is pretty awesome. And the
Yeah.
one thing that I will say, and the one thing I love about your experience, and
Mhm.
everybody who has shared their experiences on this show over the years, to me, that is the true disclosure.
Mhm.
That is, the government agents and the military and the contractors and everybody, they can sit here and talk about the science, talk about, the propulsion systems, talk about, their experiments that they're going to do. And that's great. That's dandy. I'm glad that they're doing that part. But in the end, this comes down to people. These beings, wherever they are from, are contacting people such as you, such as me, and many others who are in our listening audience, and they are trying to either A, help us, B, maybe not help us, and maybe they're not too kind, but they are still trying to individualize this with people.
Hmm.
Not everybody, just certain people, whether we put out a Kmart blue light special light over top of us, or whether or not we're just in the wrong place at the wrong time or the right place at the right time. I don't know. But it really seems to me that it's people who are sharing their stories that moves the ball forward a little bit more, because we can all gain pieces to the puzzle that way from honest testimony.
Yeah, totally. I would agree with that 100%. Because even though we're on this journey collectively, we're also on this journey together individually. So like I said, we all have our own awakening experiences. We all have our own stories, and it's all part of the human story. At the same time. So I think we're living in extraordinary times right now. It's kind of like a contrast between those of us that are part of this ascension process or are choosing to be part of the ascension process, and those of us that aren't. So we kind of see the backdrop of a lot of political unrest right now and a lot of crazy stuff happening. I'm not going to get into politics, but there's a lot of weird stuff happening, and sometimes it makes us question our reality, just like I did quite a few years ago.
Do you still question your reality today?
Oh, yeah, sometimes I do. I feel like sometimes, like, I feel like I have like one foot in 3D and the other foot in 5D. Like most of the time I feel like I'm living this 4D 5D existence, but sometimes you have to go to the airport. That's definitely the 7 layers of Hades there, or to also to the grocery store, and then you get and then you get back into reality, I guess, to a certain extent, or you're interacting with family members or friends of your husband's that are totally unawakened. So yeah, it is an interesting kind of time that we're living in.
How did your family react when you went public with this?
At first they weren't in favor of it. They thought that um, I needed to focus on my 3D job and put this to the wayside. So I started off doing a lot of Akashic readings. So I've done thousands of Akashic readings for people all around the world in the last 12 or 13 years. But at the time, they thought that they didn't say outright said I was crazy. They never did that, but they just thought that I was focused on the wrong things, that I need to be focused on retiring from my job and doing, the 3D things. And I told them that wasn't my path anymore, that, I needed to do this spiritual thing full time. And I got a lot of resistance from my family and even from my husband, because um, he he was also programmed to believe that, hey, you got this government job, you got to stick with the job, get your retirement, all that stuff. So I went through battles with my family and my husband for 3 years until I finally just decided, I've had enough. I'm I'm going to retire on such and such a date. I used my Akashic earnings to purchase service time so I could retire early. So with the particular retirement system that I was working within for the local government, you were able to purchase time, so I could still get my full retirement. So that's what I did in 2019, and I devoted myself full time to this ever since.
That's awesome. And it was nice that you were able to see the light of what you wanted to do. Not many people get that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it became very clear to me. I had more experiences with where I was sent to Crestone, Colorado, which is actually the UFO capital of Colorado. So if you want to see UFOs, go to Crestone. It's in the San Luis Mountains, just kind of south central Colorado. There's actually a UFO watchtower there, and there's a lot of sightings in this area because there's a big vortex, kind of similar to Sedona, but
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So I went
Hold that
there and
thought.
had, yeah,
Hold that
okay,
thought. I apologize
okay.
for cutting you off, but
No,
we
it's
do
fine.
have to go to break here at
Yeah.
the top of the hour. I'm so excited that we got Debbie Solaris on for another hour. We're going to get into the Galactic Federation, galactic history. What does this all mean when it comes to our distant brethren? We'll be right back. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. All right, we are clear. We got about 6 minutes. I'm going to put you back in the green room, and I'm just going to step away for a minute, okay?
Okay, sure.
Okay, be right back. Be right back, everybody. All right. I am back, and we got about a minute to go. Let's bring Debbie back in. How you doing, Debbie?
Good, good.
Good. All right. Illumino Hotto, how are you? Been a while since you've been here. Good morning, Ian McFadden. Okay. Big thank you tonight to Lenda, Pam, Richard, T-Bone, Deidre, Gizmo, and Area 53 for the super chats. Space is fake. How you doing? Good to see you. And we got about 20 seconds. Want to remind everybody you could shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag. So make sure you check it on out and have some fun with it. Because you can wear our stuff out in public. You really can. That's what we like about it. We're going to get going in 5 seconds. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We have our good friend Debbie Solaris here. We're going to get into the Galactic Federation coming up momentarily. First, we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Nimiety. Nimiety is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Now, we bring back Debbie Solaris, her website, debbiesolaris.com, and she's going to teach us all about galactic history coming on up here. And Debbie, thank you so much for taking time for us.
Oh, thank you for having me back and for having me on this really interesting radio show. So it's been fun. So we're wanting to get into galactic history. So I mentioned Crestone. So if you guys are ever in Colorado and you want to see UFOs, go to Crestone. You'll see them. But galactic history. So, like I said, after I had my contact experiences, I started getting downloads of things that happened in our universe. History of different star systems, and I started also accessing this information through all the Akashic readings I was doing. Like I said, I've done thousands of readings, and I started seeing patterns in people's stories. So a lot of folks that are incarnating since, I would say, World War II, now I wouldn't say every single person on the planet, but quite a few of us are older souls that came from other star systems, other realities. So these were usually the people that were interested in having readings with me because they were, getting the sense that they weren't from here, so I've done a lot of these types of readings, and I started seeing information in the Akashic record. So in addition to the downloads, the nightly downloads I was getting, I was also seeing this information. And so throughout, several years, I've compiled a lot of information around some of these systems, some of the more common ones that people know about, as well as some of the maybe not so common ones, and started getting an idea of galactic history. I did my first galactic history presentation at the University of Colorado in Boulder. So that was my intro to being a galactic historian. And ever since then, people called me a galactic historian. So I started doing presentations, throughout the Front Range of Colorado, and then eventually I got interviewed on Gaia TV in 2019, and that's when I kind of got propelled into becoming more of a public figure, and less of just a Akashic reader. But getting into the history, so just starting off with Earth, um, a lot of people don't know this, but Earth was actually being visited by extraterrestrial beings millions of years ago. So millions of years ago, extraterrestrial beings were colonizing Earth, were coming here, bringing DNA from various different star systems. So that's what makes Earth so unique, is that it's a compilation of DNA from many different star systems. That's why we see so much diversity in human types here on planet Earth. We also see a lot of diversity in the fauna and flora on planet Earth. And I know you love cryptids, so cryptids also came from, I understand, from Lyra. So Lyra is a star system where it was called the home of human consciousness. And my understanding is that they originated from Lyra, so that would be Sasquatch and Yeti, and all the cryptids that we know and love. And they were actually 12. They had 12-strand DNA, so they actually have more strands of DNA than Earth humans do. So they have abilities beyond what most Earth humans have, which include interdimensional traveling. So that's why Sasquatch always disappears when Billy Bob and Bubba are chasing him, in some of those shows, that we watch on History or Discovery. So the reason why they disappear is because they're shifting into other dimensions. So these are very intelligent beings. They're not big hairy apes like they try to make them out to be on some of these shows. And they have their own reality and culture. But my understanding from the records is that they originated from Lyra. So Earth was getting seeded with different beings, different you know, and they were also mucking around with the human DNA. So Earth Humans is actually a compilation of, I would say, at least 22 different extraterrestrial beings. So we're just a compilation. We're like the Heinz 57 of the galactic
Right.
world. Yeah. So everything started in our galaxy. Everything started in our universe, actually, through Andromeda Galaxy. So Andromeda Galaxy was where these co-creator beings, this is my understanding from what I've seen in the record, so I don't know if this aligns with other people's beliefs, but I'm just kind of telling it like how I guess from my frame of reference. But so Andromeda Galaxy was where these co-creator beings were wanting to create this separation from source. So we live in a multi-universe reality, and this multi-universe, each universe goes through this separation period from source. So it's this descent into the physical realm. And so they were starting this experience here in this universe. And so these beings that were in the Andromeda Galaxy created the Milky Way, and the Milky Way actually separated from the Andromeda Galaxy to become this backdrop of physicality.
Right.
And then these beings came in through the Antares Stargate. So Antares is the biggest, brightest star in Scorpio. It's a Stargate. So it's the Stargate that is a portal that connects Andromeda Galaxy to the Milky Way. So these beings came in through that portal to start this experience, this descent from source into physical reality here in this particular galaxy. And so that was when there were some feline beings and some avian beings that came from other universes that came to start creating physical life, and they decided to create them in the Lyra constellation. So everything in our galaxy actually started in Lyra. Actually it started in Galactic Center, which was that space between Scorpio and Sagittarius, but the physical beings and the physical planets were first created in the Lyra constellation. So Lyra is significant because there was two human races that came out of this. So there was a lot of genetic mixing during this time, and there was two human races that were created. So we have the blue-skinned Vegan beings that were the representation of Mother Goddess consciousness, and then the white Lyran beings that were the representation of Father God consciousness. So everything kind of follows a template on in our universe, which is the female and male template, dark and light, that sort of thing. So these beings lived in beautiful paradise planets that I would say the most similar thing I've watched on I would say popular movies is the Avatar movies. Whenever I watched Avatar, like the Avatar 1 and the Avatar the Way of the Water, it always reminds me of the Lyran planets. Even the beings looked like they could be from Vega. So they had tall blue skinned beings. That was the Navi people. So they lived in these paradise planets for millions of years until the Draconians. These are the reptilians that lived in the Draco system, which was actually unfortunately located right next door to Lyra. Decided they wanted to conquer the Lyran system. So they went into this big war. So everything that happened from here on out happened because of that big galactic war that decimated 50 million Lyrans and decimated some of their planets. And it was so bad that the Lyrans that did survive had to disperse out into different parts of the galaxy, and that's what started all these different races of beings. So most of them, I wouldn't say every single one of them, but a lot of these beings were descendants of these Vegan and Lyran refugees. So we see kind of history repeating itself constantly. Like there's always like this beautiful paradise, and then some evil force comes in and disrupts everything, and then the survivors have to go start anew in another part of another planet or another place or another country, and we see this repeated over and over again. This is part of our human story. So the beings that I would say the most well-known beings that we know of that were descendants of these refugees were the Pleiadians and the Sirians and the Andromedans and beings from Orion. Arcturus was kind of its own thing. So Arcturus had its own consciousness. They were always kind of set aside to be the guardians of the galaxy because they were also they had their own Stargate. So they were the second major Stargate other than Antares. So I don't know if this is kind of what you're looking for, but that's how I see galactic history. And I can go for hours, but
Well, let me
yeah.
ask you this. How do you find this eternal stored information? Is it downloaded, or do they take you to like this galactic library?
Yeah, that's a good question. So initially a lot of this information was just kind of randomly downloaded. Like I would go to sleep and then I would wake up knowing this information. I didn't know where it came from. And then, I understood later it was, most likely downloads from either my own soul memories or from the Akashic records, probably a combination of both. But when I access the records, it's more energetically, like I will set an intention that, okay, I'm ready to access the records. So I do this column of light exercise where I'm imagining connecting with, the higher, aspects of the records. But honestly, I don't see the records like a library. I see it more like, um, I don't know, it's kind of like an energetic space where I can immediately access somebody's information, so and it happens so seamlessly a lot of times that I've done it so many times that sometimes I don't even have to do the whole Akashic process. I'll just connect immediately and get information. But But a lot of times when I do access somebody's Akashic records, like let's say if I'm doing a reading for a client, it's like I see a movie. So it's like almost like renting a Netflix movie or something. I know that sounds kind of stupid, but sometimes how it plays out, where um, I'm seeing a movie, but at the same time, I'm feeling their feelings. So whatever it is that they're feeling, I'm also feeling it. Or I'm hearing information from their guides. So it's also a clairaudient experience where I'm getting information from the Akashic guides or from the person's guides or my guides. They call them the loved ones, in Akashic language. But then I'm also getting information from the Akashic guides who are the masters, so they're the masters of the records. So it's kind of like a multi-clair experience. And so that's why sometimes doing these readings can be somewhat exhausting, because you're looking at somebody's story and you're trying to interpret what was happening to them at that time. And it's not just past life regression. I think a lot of people mistakenly think that Akashic readings are just past life regression sessions, and they're not. It's actually kind of a 180-degree view of your soul's journey. So you can also see things that are going on in this lifetime, as well as future probable lifetimes or multidimensional timelines. So we're all multidimensional beings, and sometimes I'm able to see. Actually, I would say a lot of times I can see multi-dimensional lifetimes that individual might be having that maybe isn't like an incarnation per se, like we understand it here in this reality, but they're still having a multi-dimensional lifetime in a different timeline. So that might be affecting that person too. I also do Akashic clearing sessions. So that's the other offering I do, where if somebody's running into the same kind of karmic patterns over and over and over again, or they're having issues that they can't seem to resolve, I'll help them clear that through their records. So that's also kind of a fascinating aspect of working with the Akashic records.
Do you find then that a lot of it, like I think you said an important word there just a minute ago, which
Hmm.
was interpretation.
Hmm.
A lot of skeptics would say all you're doing is creating what you think rather than from the downloads, because they haven't had that experience or understanding of it. How do you kind of dig deep from the skeptical people who say, how do I know it's not just your imagination or that you're making this up on the fly?
Um, I get that question a lot actually, and yeah, a lot of it is being processed through my frame of reference, and I tell people that when I'm doing a reading, like, hey, this is my interpretation, I'm just telling you how I see it. But and they don't have to believe me. It's like I don't get my feelings hurt if people are skeptical or they don't believe what I'm sharing with them is real. But I do believe on the flip side of that a lot of us here on planet Earth have been taught not to trust our intuition. That we're always taught that logic prevails. Like everything has to have a physical component, and if it's not physical, it's suspect. That we don't really understand. Like, okay, if it's not real, if it's not physical, it's not real. Which is actually not the truth. The truth is there's a multi-dimensional realities, and when we are getting downloads of things, it's coming from someplace. So maybe it is our interpretation, but it's also something that could be very much we're connecting to some information someplace that has relevance for that time of in place. That's why when people do Akashic or I'm sorry, I mean like tarot readings or astrology readings, it's kind of focusing on an interpretation of things that are happening in that time of place. Whatever, for astrology might be, a certain date or a time, or with tarot readings, a certain symbols. So Um, so I think it all has relevance, so whatever is being channeled through me, in a certain time of place has some relevance for my client. Otherwise, I wouldn't be downloading it. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's I don't know, that's how I'm trying to, I guess, explain it. Um, but it is. I do believe that a lot of us, especially those of us that are older, that were born in the 50s and 60s, we were taught not to trust our intuition, that we were supposed to only believe things that were physical and through logic. But I think that's changing now. And I do believe that now, we're stepping into a period of where, the divine feminine skill sets are being valued again, and that, intuition is valued, so if you're getting a download on something, it's probably based on some level of reality, so that's how I see it.
I love it. I love it. Debbie Solaris is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We got about 3 minutes before we have to go to break. The clarity on which you get messages.
Mhm.
How does that work? How do you get those clear messages where you just know? Is it telepathic? Are you like reading like a chalkboard with the answers on it? How does it look to you?
Well, like I mentioned before, it's kind of plays out like a movie, so I see it visually, like in my third eye. And I also get clairaudient messages. And so it's like I'm, getting like multi levels of messages through symbols, through clairaudience, through clairvoyance, through clairsentience, so it's a combination of activating all these clair senses as at once. And so I'm able to, I guess, just get like very clear messages. I don't know, maybe I can use an example. So I had a client a couple of years ago that came to me for a reading because her husband was brutally murdered, and she was just wondering what was going on with that. What was the whole backstory? And so, and then I think the case went cold. Like I think the police were working on trying to find the killer, and they just and they couldn't find any enough. Just enough clues or enough information. So the case went cold. And so she was upset about that. And she asked me, what's going to happen with this case? And I was able to look into the records, and I saw that the case was going to get reopened a year later, and that a new investigator, like this really kind of hotshot investigator, was going to be um, and I don't know why I saw this really clearly. Like sometimes I see things, it's like I'm seeing like a real clear vision, so I saw this investigator, and and he was going to pick up the case and start to find some suspects. And so a year later, exactly what I said happened. And she did ask me at with the original reading, like, do you get a name for this person, this new investigator? And I said, well, I'm not getting a name, but I'm getting an initial, and the initial is M, M. And so a year later, sure enough, they did get a new investigator assigned to the case. That was originally a cold case, and his name was Michael.
Let's hold that
So,
thought with Michael.
yeah,
We're going to come
yeah.
back. We have Debbie Solaris here for another 30 minutes on Spaced Out Radio. We continue after this.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, we are clear. Excuse me. This is a good one. Alexander Leslie, welcome to Spaced Out Radio's chat room. Jurassic Yoey, good to see you again. Having fun, Deb?
Sure. Yeah, this is great.
We're going to get to some questions here in the next half hour. I'm looking forward to it. It's just amazing the knowledge that you have having this kind of go on every day in your life. Can you shut it down? Like, can you turn it off if you need to?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, usually I just imagine shutting off my third eye. So I do like a little, ding, like if I have to go to the grocery store, I don't want to see everybody's auras, so I just go, doop, and then I just shut it off. But honestly, I think I'm in the records like 60% of the time. So sometimes I'm in different realities naturally, but so it kind of makes things fun. But yeah, it can get exhausting at times. And sometimes I go into my hermit mode and I don't want to talk to anybody for a few days because I'm getting like downloads, So, um, but but yeah, I can turn it off at will. So a lot of times if I'm at the airports are the worst. You get a lot of people's energies. There's a lot going on. It's everybody's in a hurry and it's just kind of crazy. So I just shut it off but then if I need to, if I want to connect, then I connect.
Interesting. I have been, lack of a better term, turned off for a while. But if I am around people who are activated, the light switch goes on immediately. It's kind of weird that way.
We got kind of a cool question here. Carl asks, can you please describe what it's like being in the fourth dimension versus being in the fifth?
Let's get to that. We'll get to that question when we come back.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Hi, Human Carl. How you doing? We have to call him Human Carl around here because Alien Carl is my alien friend. So we have to make sure that nobody gets him confused. We love our Human Carl around here. We have about 2 minutes. Scanman, how you doing, buddy? If I was a good reader, I totally would, Scanman. I'm not a good reader. I stumble over too many words when I'm reading. I thought about it, but I'm not a smooth reader. All right, we got about a minute and a bit here. Mr. Cowley, welcome back to the show. Oh, Mr. Cowley loves his spaced out radio. David Norenberg. How you doing? 3 of us have all made promises to each other. First one to pass, one has to try and find a way to give a message back. I like that idea. I've thought about doing that, but I figure I'm not even allowing people I've got it in my will that I don't even want a funeral or a celebration in life. To hell with it all. I'm on to the next journey. Here we go in 7 seconds. Here we go in the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us in as we have one final half hour with Debbie Solaris here on the show. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. DebbieSolaris.com is Debbie's website. And we were talking about a lot of really cool things the last half hour regarding galactic history, the galactic records and Akashic records, everything to go along with that. Debbie, thank you for being an awesome guest tonight.
Thank you for having me. We're closing out the second hour here, and so hopefully we can answer some people's questions.
All right, let's get right to them. 1 second here. Start off with Human Carl. Debbie, would you please describe what it's like being in the fourth dimension versus being in the fifth dimension?
Yes, I'm happy to answer that. So the fourth dimension, you're still having some duality consciousness. So it's a little bit more like a dream state. So I do believe that when we're in dream state, we're actually in the fourth dimension. And so there's kind of a haziness quality to being in the fourth dimension. You do see auras around things. You'll see beings that are not physical when you're in the fourth dimension. So this is where people, mediums, can access, what they call discarnate spirits. So these are spirits that have left the physical body but are still kind of in our earth realm. So this is where mediums can connect with these beings, these souls that have passed on. And these are the souls that have not yet transitioned, so they're still kind of in our earth plane. But yeah, it's kind of a hazy quality. You could see different types of interdimensional beings. So there's also negative beings that you can also connect with in the fourth dimension, in addition to higher dimensional beings. Once you get past the fourth dimension, things become crystal clear. So when you're in the fifth dimension and beyond, it's like you're in a hyper reality where things are very, very real. And the only way I can describe it is like the details are very, very sharp, and the colors are more brilliant, and you're still seeing auras around things. But instead of this kind of duality, kind of hazy kind of quality that we saw in the fourth dimension, we're seeing more. The fifth dimension is more of the love consciousness. So you're feeling in this higher realm, you're connecting with higher dimensional beings, so it's kind of like being in a hyper reality where everything is ultra, ultra real. And I had the experience of that when I was on board the Starship, when I had my first visit and also my second visit. And it's beyond comprehension. And you go through such a high when you're in the fifth dimension that when you return from it, you go through this, period of depression, like I did for several months, because you're used to that high of being in the higher realms. Near-death experiencers will experience this as well. So a lot of them experience, very similar things to ET experiencers, so. That's the best way I can describe it. I hope that helps. You got to be careful in the fourth dimension, because there's some nasty beings in the fourth. They're not all good beings, so you have to use a lot of discernment. But I hope that answers your question.
Rockstar Sammy Hagar says he's dealt with beings from the fifth plus dimension up to 7, 8, 9 dimensions. What are those beings like? Are they more etherical?
Yeah. Yeah, once you get, I think there's some level of physical reality still in the fifth dimension. So there's an aspect like a crystalline physicality. So we're not in carbon based anymore. So there's still some level of physicality in the fifth dimension. But once you're getting into, sixth and seventh and eighth and ninth, these beings are not physical anymore. They're etheric beings, so they don't have physical bodies. They might appear humanoid, or they might appear like they have a physical body, but they don't. So this is where a lot of people are seeing angelic beings or extraterrestrial beings that might be existing in other dimensions.
All right, let's move on. Let's go to in the studio. Going back to the first half hour when you were talking about being on craft, in the studio is asking, did they feed you? And if so, what did you have?
I don't remember getting any food. Sorry, I can't answer that. I don't think Arcturians eat anyway. They ingest like light energies for sustenance. So I don't remember eating anything, but it'd be kind of fun to see what extraterrestrial beings would eat. But that's a cool question. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Let's go to Mel WD40 lubing us up for this question. When you were on craft and they took you into the future, did they say how far into the future?
They didn't give me a timeline. The thing I got was maybe 500 years into future. That was just my own download about it, but I don't know for sure. But it was kind of far off in the future. It wasn't like the next couple of decades. I wish it was though.
All right, Queen Peachy is asking. So let me see if I got this straight. You received massive downloads about the universe, and nothing about their home was a planet and not a star?
Uh, so yeah, they live in planets, so when I refer to star systems, I'm just referring to star systems generally, but usually each star system have its own planets. Like I mentioned, Lyra had a number of planets. That's where these beings reside. So I'm sorry if you misunderstood that.
Are their planets much like ours?
Some of them are kind of like a constructed physical reality. So Cassiopeia was an example of that, where it wasn't really real, but it looked real. I don't know how to explain that really well, but some of the planets, particularly some of the ones in the Pleiades, were kind of similar to Earth, depending on the star system.
All right, let's move on to another question. Let us go next to Daryl here. Can you tell us why they are, or how many different ones they are, being alien species?
There's tens of thousands of alien species. I don't have a number, but there's a lot of them. The ones that talk about the most are the ones that are more directly connected with planet Earth or had some impact on the Earth human genome. So those are the ones that would more directly impact us as far as, Earth humans as a species of beings. But there's tens of thousands of beings, and not all of them are humanoid. There's quite a few non-humanoid beings out there as well.
How many species have you dealt with?
I don't think I've ever counted it, but I would say probably 30 to 40 that I regularly connect with.
Out of those species, have you ever had negative contact?
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, I've had contact with some reptilian shapeshifters in this reality. So I've had contact with not so great beings at times. It doesn't happen very often, but yeah, reptilian shapeshifters, they look human, but you can tell if you have that sixth sense, you can tell right away they're not human, because there's kind of a plastic quality to them, and they look almost a little too perfect. And I don't know why, but they have this smell, and it's more like an etheric smell, but they don't smell good. And then you kind of see this flash of what they really look like. So when I encounter a shapeshifter being, I see a flash of what they really look like. So I know they're a shapeshifter. And usually they'll know when you know. They pick up on it, and they'll skedaddle out of the vicinity because they don't want to be found out. So, but yeah, I've had encounters like that. I've also encountered insectoid beings that were kind of scary. There are insectoid beings, so not all insectoid beings are negative. So there are insectoid beings in the star system of Antares, which is more like mantis looking beings, and those are benevolent beings. They're in the higher realm, so they don't really exist in physical reality anymore. But there's also quite a few insectoid beings from Orion that are kind of dark beings. And then, there's a multitude of different types of beings. I can talk for hours about them, but I know we only have a few minutes left here.
Well, I have time. I have time.
Okay.
Let's go to Hillbilly Herb. What
Okay.
sort of information could or should a beginner Akashic reader look for? I want to try, but never know what I want to know.
So let me see if I understand your question. Are you asking how to access the records? I guess that's what or are you
Yes.
just, yeah, how to access the records? So Dr. Linda Howe wrote a really good book called How to Read the Akashic Records. It's kind of considered to be the Akashic Bible. So and you can get that on Amazon. I think it's maybe less than $20. It's the book I have on my shelf here. I still refer to it quite a bit. But I would say that's the Bible, and she gives you step-by-step instructions on how to access the records. And that's a good place to start off with. If you're doing, readings for yourself, you can access it, use her method and her process. She calls it the pathway prayer process. That'll get you into the records. But if you're doing reading for somebody else, you definitely want to get their full name and birth date, because that'll help you to access their actual record rather than somebody else's records. So, and then the kind of questions you would ask is, I think when you're first starting out, you just want to kind of see what you connect with. So once you do the column of light exercise and you go through the pathway prayer process and you're with me, I kind of feel the discernible click. Like I know when I'm in, because I know that sounds weird, but I feel like this little click in my head, and then I know I'm connected. And then I'll start seeing images. So instead of trying to focus on all these different images, because a lot of times what happens with beginner readers is they'll see a bunch of stuff, is try to focus in on just one image and see if that turns into like a story, or there's a backdrop information about that image. A lot of people, when they're first starting out, will just see colors, and that's fine too. So don't discount if you're just seeing colors at first, because it's kind of like anything else. You have to practice at it and keep doing it, and then you'll start seeing images, and as your third eye opens. Speaking of the third eye, I would say it's ultra important to have a very open and clear third eye. So if your third eye is calcified a little bit, like a lot of ours are, being in the 3D reality, and we're kind of shut off from everything. You can do exercises to open up your third eye, and one of the easiest ones is just to do a 4-count breathing exercise, where you're breathing a 4-count breath into the third eye. You're holding it for 4 counts, and then you're exhaling for 4 counts, and you keep doing that until you start seeing colors or feeling like a buzzing in your head. And that's when you know that your third eye is starting to clear out. The other thing I would also recommend is, you can always eat purple and blue foods like berries or beets. That's supposedly because those are the colors that resonate with the third eye. That'll help activate your third eye. And then there's also yoga poses you can do that will activate the third eye, such as the warrior poses or downward facing dog, or child's pose is another one. So there's a variety of different things. You can look that up also, but on the internet. But I would say that would help. So opening up the third eye is going to help, and also keep practicing. Just keep practicing going in there. I hope that helps.
Love the answer. Love the answer. Okay, let's move on to another question. Let's go back to Queen Peachy Keen. According to NASA, stars consist mostly of hydrogen and helium. Major difference in sustaining life, no biggie. I mean, is this something where we kind of look at, these planets like we expected? Well, physicist Dr. John Brandenburg, who I got to meet last weekend,
Mm-hmm.
he says that Mars, about 1,000,000 years ago, was inhabited.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but Jupiter being a gaseous planet, obviously they're not going to be able to live in a ball of gas. So
Yeah.
when it comes to this, their planets, wherever they are coming from, are they mainly in our solar system, or are they traveling from outside of our solar systems and planets much like ours?
Yeah, that's a great question, because being having a science background, I questioned that too. Like, how do these beings live in, like, how are they Venusian beings that live in Venus, but Venus is not inhabitable? So my understanding of what the answer to that is that these beings are existing actually in different dimensional aspects of these planets. So they're living in a different dimension. So maybe in a different dimension, these planets are inhabitable. Um, so um, and then when we're in the higher realms, there is no linear time. So we might be simultaneously experiencing these different races of beings that are living in different timelines when maybe the planet was more inhabitable. So there is no linear time. There is no, sense of past, present, or future, once you get in the fifth dimension and beyond. But I would say the quick answer to that is most likely these beings are living in different dimensional aspects of these planets that are probably, probably more inhabitable in the higher realms.
Here's another question from T-Bone. What does your family think of all this?
Like, at first, like I mentioned earlier, and I think last hour was that they weren't totally on board. But now, because I'm successful, I think a lot of it's because I'm successful at what I do. I make a pretty good living doing this, but um, because the universe supports me. But I think they've come on board a little bit. They still think it's weird, but they don't. But they're more becoming more open minded. Where they're not. Thinking I'm just totally wackadoodle and lost my rocker. They have embraced it more with, I would say, with the passing of time, and with, I guess, the response that I get from people that follow me, and my clients, and the events I'm involved with, and everything else. So, but great question, thank you.
Let's move on. Let's go to Ian in the UK. That has nothing to do with the show. And let's go to Andromeda. And I have a question. Debbie, have you ever experienced beyond space and time?
I would say sometimes going into the records is beyond space and time. So I sometimes, depending on the particular client I'm working with, if I'm doing a reading or if I'm accessing certain information for certain projects, I do see alternate universes. So one universe that I was introduced to is called the Doll universe, which is actually a kind of an alternate component uh, or kind of a complementary universe to our universe. So that was really interesting. And the reason why I was connecting with this universe was I was following the story of the doll, which were these space travelers that got sucked into our universe through a portal, and but they came from this other universe, and they ended up, I think, inhabiting Aldebaran for a period of time, but which is a star system in the Taurus constellation. But yeah, I sometimes see, and there was one time I saw triangle-headed beings, maybe similar to what Corey Good was talking about, and they came from a different universe. And this was connected with a reading I was doing for somebody, that she had a connection with these beings. So sometimes I do see alternate realities beyond space and time, and the other beings I saw were these avian beings from a different universe. Not quite blue avians. These were more like, I don't know, they had kind of an iridescent quality to them. But yeah, sometimes I do see that. But thanks for the question.
We are done with audience questions here, but I want to follow up on that one though,
Mhm.
because I thought it was very important. As we evolve as humans, as we start to accept the more spiritual aspect of our mind, body, and soul, how do we get our mind to focus on the clarity of receiving these messages? How do we move it forward so that way, if I'm in my mind and I'm thinking, oh, I got a message, well, that might be my imagination rather than being all knowing on what it is.
Well, I think as humans, we have a tendency to second guess ourselves a lot. I think that's a common human quality. And I do that a lot. I used to do that a lot. I don't do it anymore. So I have a really boring answer to that. So this is going to be boring. But the best way to get tuned in is to meditate and have a regular meditation practice. That was what my guides first shared with me, after my experiences. And I actually rebelled against that answer because I like my monkey mind. I like being an overthinker, but they told me meditation was key, and so they did send me to Crestone to learn to meditate with the Zen Buddhist monks. So Crestone has a lot of Buddhist centers and ashrams because it's a very highly spiritual place in Colorado. But I learned how to meditate, and now I have a regular meditation practice. So you learn after a while. So when you first start to meditate, it's kind of like crickets. Like, what I'm just doing this. I don't know what I'm supposed to be focused on. You're just kind of sitting there like a bump in the log. And then the more you do it, the more you start getting audible messages that obviously aren't coming from you. They're coming from your higher self or your higher guides, which is actually an aspect of you. But and sometimes you might even be connecting with your star family, whoever that is. It might be a number of different types of beings. But the more you meditate, the more you train yourself to look within for answers rather than looking outside of yourself. And I would say that's the best way to connect with those higher aspects and those higher gifts.
Well, I want to say a big thank you, Debbie Solaris, for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on this show, bringing
Thank
your
you for
knowledge,
having me.
and I hope to do it again very, very soon. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you for having me.
DebbieSolaris.com. And coming up next on the Mighty SOR, Hour 3 kicks off with Swamp Dweller. Then extra small Lee Strauss comes in for the Q&A. We'll be right back, everybody.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Thank you, Debbie. Very
Thank you
much
for having
appreciate
me.
you.
Yeah.
I hope
Yeah,
you had
thank you
fun.
for having me. Yeah, no, it was great. Thank you so much. And you have a really dedicated group of folks, and it's fun watching their comments as we were talking. And thank you. You've been a great host. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your questions. And
Thank you.
yeah, if you ever want me back on, just let me know.
I do want you back on. You're fun. You're
Okay.
fun. We'll do it
All
again.
right. All right. You take care. Have a great evening.
Take care, my friend. Good night.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right. I'll be right back, everybody. All right. Let's bring in Extra Small. There he is. What do you say,
Hi.
Extra Small?
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I am good. Let's give a shout out to the lovely and talented Kira, who's in the chat room.
Yep.
Space is fake. How are you?
Hello, everybody.
Look, everybody, it's extra small Lee Strauss.
Yeah, I don't know why he calls me extra small. Should I call him extra big? I mean, is that going to work?
You know what? True story. True story. For the first time in about 3.5 years, I am under 260 pounds.
That is awesome.
I weighed myself tonight. I ate, during the day. I just wanted to check it out because I was feeling thinner today.
And
I was weighing in after eating today at 257. I'm going down. Crave Dog, thank you for the super chat. Along with Tim, Human Carl, Lenda, Pam, Richard, Area 53, Gizmo, Deidre, and our main man T-Bone. Thank you. Here we go, everybody, in 3 seconds. All right, we're kicking off hour number 3 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We got Swamp Dweller and extra small Lee Strauss coming up with the Q&A very shortly. But first, we want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Nimiety. Nimiety is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. Now, before I begin this story, let me first start by clarifying that alligators are not native to Michigan, which is what made me so skeptical about believing this legend until I had an in-person encounter with him, the Michigan Gator Man. A little backstory on my family. We recently purchased a house in a small town in Michigan's Upper Thumb. Caseville, Michigan was a quiet beach town famously known for its cheeseburger festival. It seemed like a family-friendly town and a perfect place to spend summers. Everything was excellent the first year or so of living there, and then we began to hear whispers around town about the legend of what I was supposed to believe was the Gator Man. We figured it was some form of hazing that people did to new people in town and brushed it off. On the 4th of July, the town had fireworks, and about 12 of us decided to sit on the sand to view them. Our street had access to a private beach, so we were the only ones there that night. Everyone else was on the public side of the beach in the distance. My cousins and I were having a great time, actually, dancing to the music and just goofing off in general. Then, we hear something coming towards us in the distance. It's a low growling sound. We stare, but we don't see much because it's very dark along the water. Either way, there's a big group of us, so we weren't too terribly threatened by it. At this point, the crickets stopped chirping, and any voices in the distance became muted. Even the waves of Lake Huron seemed to hush. It became dead silent. My cousin Kurt points toward a low growling sound, and he says that there were 2 yellow glowing eyes growing in size as something was coming towards us. The loud crash of fireworks pulled our attention away from whatever it was, and when we looked back, it was seemingly gone. We began watching the fireworks show and soon forgot all about it. Our attention is pulled away from the fireworks as sand flies over our heads from behind us. All of us whip our heads around to see it. A figure of a man stands in the dark. Only once the flash of fireworks illuminates him enough to see what he truly is. His skin seemed to glow in the light. He looked skinny, almost scaly. We couldn't get a great look at him because of our light source. It was flashing in and out, of course. The grand finale of the fireworks began and we glanced away for just a split second. And suddenly, a splash of the water happened. This weird man was gone. After the fireworks show ended, we all decided this was pretty creepy and didn't stay at the beach for much longer. I tried to rationalize how he looked in the light, and maybe just thought he had a nasty sunburn or some sort of, skin burns or something like that. The following day, we headed back to the beach to look for any evidence that could bring some sense to the situation, and just to be safe, we got our dog with us. What we found made our skin crawl. Leading from the sand to the water was what I could only describe as gator tracks. But here's the kicker. A piece of driftwood was floating in the water next to where the tracks led, and it looked to have some sort of odd scratches and bite marks on it. I moved to get a closer look, and my dog instantly began growling and refused to walk any closer. This made me uncomfortable enough to listen and to head back to the house as fast as possible and get as far away from these tracks as I could. That night, my cousin and I decided to go back to the beach for an evening swim, but mostly to look for the gator man. I now understand that this wasn't the brightest idea, but we were bored and wanted to figure this thing out. We reached the sand, using our phone flashlights to look for any sort of evidence, but we didn't find anything interesting, so we swam in the water. We were in the water until our cousin felt something brush up against her leg. As our initial shock was settling in, our eyes began adjusting to the dark water. We saw some air bubbles and immediately felt the tension in the air. A tall figure slowly emerges from the water in the moon's light. Those same yellow glowing eyes met mine for a not-so-appreciated second time. He was angry, and we needed to leave this water. We knew immediately this was his beach, and he had the upper hand, especially in the water. We booked it back to the house, never looking back to see if it was following us. I still can't visit that beach to this day. I still see those glowing yellow eyes when I close my own. I don't know what the Michigan Gator Man wants, but I feel sorry for those who find out.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another creepy, spooky story. If you want more just like that, do us a favor. Head on over to his YouTube channel, Swamp Dweller. Hit subscribe. Ring that bell. He's got thousands of stories for you to choose from, all for free. Time for Major League. Sweet Lee, how you doing, my friend? Good to see you, Lee Strauss.
I'm doing good, Dave. It's nice to see you too. You're looking awful. Well, you're looking awful spry today.
I am. Yeah.
Look at that beautiful hair. Oh my gosh.
I know. I wish our radio audience could see it because my hair looks absolutely perfect today. It really does. You know, so it's nice. I'll tell you, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling real better. I've got my blood pressure under control. I have lost probably in the last 2-3 weeks about 7-8 pounds. And I am very, very happy, feeling more energy. My body isn't hurting anymore.
Yeah.
I'm doing good.
Well, you know what, Dave? If you probably another 5 pounds down from where you are right now, and you'll actually be able to fit into some of my shirts, and that would be fantastic.
Buddy, I will never fit into your shirts. Okay. There is no way I will ever be extra small like you, my friend, but that's okay. That is okay. I don't know what it's like being a toothpick, nor do I want to know.
Oh boy. Here we go.
I mean, here we are talking people about a guy who goes to gets up at 2:00 in the morning every morning to go to the gym. That is dedication and discipline, man. I don't have that discipline.
Dave, it comes and it goes, right? You can't have it all the time, but you can have it most of the time.
I hear you. I hear you. Now, for people who are not familiar with Lee, on our YouTube channel, every Friday night he does a show called Element 115 with our UFO reporter Tim James, and they hang on out and they discuss the hot topics of conversation for the week. It's a really, really good 1-hour program right before we go on the air. And you got into the whole Jake Barber Skywatcher
yes
talk today, and I want to say good job with that. You really did do a great job, and I don't know if you caught my tweet earlier today or not.
I don't look at X, man. I don't go there.
Well, I'm going to bring this up because I want to discuss this with you, and I think it's kind of important. All right. I said, your thoughts, please. Prior to Jake Barber and Skywatcher making psionics popular in the UFO UAP community, did you know that people have been having this communication with craft for decades and reporting on it? This isn't a shot at Jake or Skywatcher, but it is interesting to see how people are acting like this is a brand new way to study the phenomena, which it's not. And to his credit, Jake Barber actually responded, it's been around a long time. It has. And I'm telling you, that's the first time he's responded to one of our tweets, which I'm very happy about. Very happy about. And I think it just realized that, we are watching. The public is watching, and the public is wanting to see what they are doing. So, Lee, your thoughts on the overall aspect of the whole psionics aspect and the hot button conversation that it is.
Well, it seemed like that stuff came out from some sort of government group, the whole psionics thing. And it sounds like they wanted to corner the market on this whole thing. And they can't corner the market on it, Dave. It's been going around for a long time with CE5 and way before then. I mean, if you think back, when the Catholic Church started out and you had monks and that sort of thing going out and saying, there's something going on in the sky over here and it's reacting to them and stuff like that. And they wrote it down in the Bible. I mean, this stuff has been going on forever. Nobody can corner the market on it, and giving it a new name and freshening it up. I'm sorry, but psionics sounds dumb. It just does. I mean, if we're able to call them, which sounds really dumb, us being able to call a superior intelligence to come here, wouldn't it make more sense, Dave, if they were calling us out in the field and we just don't realize it? We're so big-headed and thinking, well, we run the planet, blah, 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 blah. But truthfully, Dave, I think it's the fact that they're calling us out.
And you could be right with that, but I think it's both. I do. And I think that's a great question and a great observation on that, Lee. But I do believe it's both. I think we have the ability to do it because we've tapped in to their realm. Okay. For those of us who have opened up, and some of us don't even know that we've tapped into their realm where we can do that. Or they can also call us out. Okay. As I stated on the previous show, it was the 11th anniversary of my being called outside to see a UFO on the ground. That one called me out. But I also know that I've had nights with friends where I said, hey, come on over. Let's sit on my patio, have a beer, and let's watch the UFOs fly over. And we had a black triangle come over top of my house.
Yeah.
Okay. So I do believe that it is happening both ways. The thing that I guess is irking me about this entire situation, and today was kind of an opening to that with Jake Barber on Twitter, or X, pardon me, claiming that this has been around a long while. Why can't we just admit that from the beginning? Why is this new field of you-apology so afraid to champion the history of what people have learned? It doesn't have fancy names. It doesn't have to change the name of craft. It doesn't have to change the name of summoning to psionics or CE5 or heist, whatever you want to call it. Okay, you don't have to do that. You know, I look at the United States of America, my friend, and I can already feel that I'm speaking way faster than my brain is moving right now, but I'm passionate about this.
Mm-hmm.
The beautiful part about the United States, and I wish Canada was like this, was, for better or worse, you recognize the history of your country. Whether it's historic buildings, whether it's historic landmarks, whether it's sports, whether it's music, your presidents. I can tell you right now, the majority of Canadians could not name 10 prime ministers. The majority of Americans can probably name at least 30 presidents. Okay, we don't have we have a great history in Canada, but we do not acknowledge it. Whereas in the United States, you guys acknowledge your military, you acknowledge your veterans. There's so much that you acknowledge, because whether it's good or bad, you Americans, and yes, I'm using a term there that people don't like. You Americans have a beautiful history of remembering your past, whether it was ugly or whether it was patriotic. You do that. And the one thing that I've learned about the United States is a lot of those times you fix what went wrong. Okay. An example of that would be the Vietnam War. When those soldiers came home, they were hated, they were kicked, they were spit on, they were called names. They didn't ask to be drafted. They didn't ask to do that job. But you look at the Vietnam veterans now, they are praised. Every person, goes up to them now and says, thank you. Thank you for what you did. It's not just about the Gulf War or Afghanistan or Iraq or World War I, World War II, Korea, even though the majority of those veterans are now in the history books and long departed. Okay, but you look at, if you take Vietnam, for instance, and use that as a litmus test to what I'm saying, 30 years ago, these people were hated for no reason. Today, they are respected and they are thanked. And that means the world to them. And I love that about the United States. How does this tie in to what I'm saying about ufology? We have a divide of u-apology. Since 2017, it's all UAP this, UAP that. And then we have the historic ufology. And for some reason, u-apology is embarrassed by ufology. So we have to change the names. We have to make it more modern. We have to go from UFO to UAP. We have to go from aliens or extraterrestrials to NHI. We have to change everything. And look, sometimes change is good. Okay? Especially if you're a fat guy like me trying to lose weight, change can be good. But on the flip side, when you try to erase history or you do not acknowledge history, it comes back to bite you. And I think that's what we're seeing with psionics, with the name changes, because I know you watch the Skywatcher video, Lee. and you saw the fact that they want to change the names of certain craft the way we've acknowledged them for years, and here they are saying we need to change these names. We need to modernize this a little bit.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts, Lee? Am I off base or am I?
Well, here's the deal. Simply, ufology in the beginning was all about the people that go out there, individuals, and maybe it's two of you or three of you that go out and you're looking for these things, or you've seen something, right? It's not the individual that's important anymore. It's these PhDs, these scientists, these people that have been in the military creating these groups now. And now all of a sudden, those are the people we need to listen to, instead of, Joe Blow or, Mary Jane. It's not for the individual anymore. They don't have a say anymore in this, or what's happened to them. They don't matter as much as they used to. Now it's just like I said, it's these big groups that have millions and millions of dollars behind them that are running it. And I think it's a travesty.
It
because they
is.
get to shape the narrative.
I think that's a very astute observation. I really do. And when you can shape the narrative, you control the message. And if you control the message, you control the media and the perception of the public. Now, to my criticism, I did have somebody say, but Dave, you're forgetting a key component on this. Groups like Skywatcher and others are bringing in a whole new generation of people who have interest in this topic. And they are going to be believers. And I hadn't thought about that. I've been so passionate about the one side of things, Lee, that I haven't really thought about the other side of all of these fresh faces. Maybe they're in their 60s, maybe they're in their teens. But all of these fresh faces that are being introduced to this subject, and they are reliant on learning from the last 8 years.
Who are they relying to learn from?
Talk to me, Goose.
From somebody that's got control of the narrative, my friend. Everybody else out there, like you and myself and others that have, Tim, James, and millions of other people that have had experiences, it's not like we matter anymore. If they're shaping the narrative, the people that find interest in this stuff are going to go straight to them. And they're talking about all this newfangled stuff, with the psionics and UAP and all the different language they're using right now. That's what they're going to listen to. They're not going to pay attention to somebody that says, well, I had a craft land in my backyard.
That is true. That is true. And that's why I think in the end, we have to keep applying the pressure. That there is a history. Uapology started in 2017. The only history they're really acknowledging outside of Roswell is the 2004 Nimitz incident. That's it. Yeah. They're not talking about the abductions of Travis Walton or Betty and Barney Hill or the Andreassens or Calvin Parker or anybody like that. They don't care about that. What they care about is the military aspect. And you're right. There is a military narrative beyond this. And it is only the military or the ex-military people, current contractors, who are just absolutely taking this topic and running with it. And like you said, those are the guys getting the money. Disclosure for dollars is real, my friend. We will continue this conversation with extra small Lee Strauss.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
Feisty tonight there, extra small.
Yeah, I got a little chip on my shoulder after watching some stuff and talking about it earlier, and
I think it's good. Bring
yeah.
it. Bring it. Oh, don't bring it now. Our policeman, Sweet Robbie G, is in the chat room.
Well, he's welcome to come in on the conversation.
We only got 30 minutes or 20. After we get started, 24 minutes left.
Gotcha. Yep.
Guaranteed,
Well,
Sweet Robbie G has a Big Mac in his hand right now.
I could do with one of those.
You know what I had for dinner?
Huh.
I had 2 helpings of salad, a chicken breast, and sweet potato.
I can't do white meat, man. It's too dry.
Oh, I love dry chicken, man.
Oh,
I love it. Love it. And then the night before, 2 nights before, I had homemade taco wraps.
well, that I can do all day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I had salmon for dinner.
I can't stand fish.
What?
No. Every time I go to eat fish and I get that smell of fish in my nose, it is literally like the pre-vomit choke up.
Oh,
Yeah. Been like that since a kid.
wow.
Yeah.
No wonder you don't like getting in the water.
No, I love being in the water, man. I do. I just don't do the ocean.
Yeah. Well, the I will say that the Skywatcher show was pretty cool. There was a lot of decent footage in in those shows, so I was surprised with the amount that they captured, but then again there was some stuff there that could have been Mylar balloons.
We'll get to that.
Oh yeah.
Because Jeremy Corbell put out a new video too we got to talk about.
Okay.
Dry Toast is here. The best name on YouTube. Right there. Dry Toast. I'm freaking hungry now.
Yeah, it's all the food we're talking about. Food.
Oh, man. Dave Tiger Williams is here. He'll drop the gloves for you.
Wow.
And so, you ever get that point where you're just so sick of drinking water, but your body is like craving it?
No, I don't get that.
Oh, I do. Every now and again, I do. See, where I gained most of my weight was not because of what I ate, but because what I was drinking.
Really?
Yeah. Dude, I could sit at a table and pound back 12 Pepsis in no time.
Oh,
Right? And then throw in a couple of Tim Hortons ice caps on top of that. And there's just something about cold beverages. I love cold beverages. And that is my addiction, is cold beverage. So my water has to be cold. I can't drink it at room temperature. Can't stand it. Right?
Yeah, if I've been working outside all day in the heat, I have to have room temperature water. I can't do cold water.
Yeah, but we work 2 different type of jobs. You actually work hard for a living.
Kinda. I'm more of a supervisor than physical stuff, so I still have to show them how to do it every once in a while, but
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm.
Ice cold, Coke in a can. Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Oh. And everybody's like, well, switch over to diet. I'm allergic to aspartame.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hold on 1 second there, Lee. Thank you tonight to Crave Dog, Tim, Richard, Area 53, Gizmo, Pam, Linda, Carl, T-Bone, and Hippie Deidre for the great super chats tonight. Appreciate the love and support, everybody. And we're going to get going here in about 12 seconds. All right, the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. This is the Mighty SOR, and we have extra small Lee Strokes in the Q&A tonight. Before we bring Lee back on, reminder to all of you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our archives. They're always free. Why are they free? Because I like them that way. And since I'm the boss around here, those archives are free forever and ever and ever and ever. Let's make that last forever. Come on, Blink 182 right there. All right. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Extra small Lee Strauss is here. Before we continue on, you know what I hate, Lee? It drives me nuts.
What's that?
Diet pop or
Oh,
soda. What you Americans call it soda.
we call it pop, or at least I call it pop.
I've been to areas where they call it soda.
Back east,
right?
On the
And
east side.
then you get those people out there, and you know who you are, people. Oh, Diet Pepsi tastes exactly like regular Pepsi. What kind of strange planet are you from to think that Diet Pop or soda tastes exactly like non-diet regular pop?
No.
It's horrible.
Mm-mm.
And it's horrible for your guts. Okay? That aspartame is horrible for your guts. No, this isn't a health food show. I'm just pissed off about it. Okay? You got me fired up during the break. Okay? There is no way on God's green earth of sugar, okay, that regular soda pop, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, you name it, tastes the same as Diet Pepsi or Diet Coke. That's horrible thinking that. Horrible.
No, but
You're a bad human being if you think if you were making sense there. Shame on you.
Yeah, there's no way I'm drinking diet. I will just not drink any of that crap at all. Just go straight to water, and definitely not drinking anything diet.
Drives me nuts. Oh, but it tastes the same. It's just not sugar. It's something else. Yeah, no, it doesn't. It's like pouring a glass of milk and saying there's ice cream.
There you go.
But it's the same. No, one's melted. One is not. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Anyways, back to the psionics aspect of everything here and the name changes. You're a little bit fired up about this.
Oh, I am, because I think they're doing it on purpose, Dave. I really do think they're trying to take it away from, regular people.
What do you think the purpose of that is?
Well, they want control of the narrative, right? Some group somewhere wants control of what people believe in and what people don't. They're not, you notice how no one is talking about abductions at all, right? They're staying as far away from that as they possibly can. The only people that talk about that stuff are, regular people like you and I.
I think it's coming, though.
You do. What makes you think that?
Because they've laid everything out in stages. So if you go back to the incarnation of you apology, okay, to the Stars Academy. Excuse me, that came out of nowhere. It was all nuts and bolts. Weren't allowed to talk anything woo. Okay? Then we wait a few years, and all of a sudden David Grush introduces the term NHI, non-human intelligence. What is NHI? Aliens. Okay? So now we got aliens. 2 years later, Jake Barber comes out. Now we're talking communication with craft. We're turning up the woo a little bit. It's like for them, they are climbing a ladder. And on the next rung of that ladder is a new topic. Now,
I think you're wrong here, because they're going to have to admit, if they do that, Dave, they're going to have to admit that they don't have control.
oh, good point.
So why would they admit that people are being taken against their will? I doubt that's ever going to happen.
I don't think it happens soon. I think the next step would be, God, I'm going to have to think about this. But they are bringing it out in pieces. That's what I do know.
Yeah, they are. But the next logical step is not, hey, by the way, there's people that are getting abducted. They're going to say something else like, we vectored a craft in, it landed. Now we've got the craft's technology. I think that's more the direction that they're going to go.
I don't see that.
No,
that's disclosure. That's contact.
Well, wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. If they already have control of the craft, who's to say there's aliens on the craft, right? So maybe they're going to say, well, they vectored this craft in, it landed, there's nothing there. This craft is being, somehow we can control it with our minds and that sort of thing.
I don't think we're ready for that one yet. I think the next one could be telepathy. That we have the power of telepathy.
Well, so
we need to create a Spaced Out Radio bingo card for this. We do. And don't worry, people. We'll keep the center square free.
There you go.
Okay. But I mean, most people did not have psionics on their bingo card. For years, people were made fun of for being able to claim that they are communicating with craft.
But where did so with these groups, where did they say all that came from? They said it was some sort of a CIA or intelligence group that came up with the idea and perfected it. And now there's only certain people with, ex government contracts that are able to do this stuff. It's not you and I, it's people that have been trained for years. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's the military aspect of the game that's being played. They are still trying to make this into a governmental military project. Okay, the military is protecting us from these NHI, from Zeta Reticuli, and all over the universe and all over the dimensions and even time travel, because we don't know where they're from or how they're getting here or what they even want with us. It's still giving them plausible denial, in my opinion. Plausible deniability, you can play stupid on a lot of things, man, if you have plausible deniability.
Oh, yeah. Well, the comment about the different buckets, right? You got the red bucket, you got the blue bucket, you got this other bucket, which is just a bunch of hooey to me. Some of it could be American drones, some of it could be Chinese drones, and then you got this other bucket that is who knows what? I mean, come on. There's this stuff they just they want to pin it on people, and they want to give somebody a plausible deniability, basically. And I've just had enough of it, really. I think, Dave, you've been saying for so long that this stuff's going to come out, but it's going to come out from, us citizens, right? And not necessarily from the military, because they're going to keep a lid on it and keep it all tight and warm and fuzzy back in some classified room somewhere, right? So if the stuff is going to come out, Dave, it's going to be you and I, it's going to be the news, or somebody's going to capture something amazing, and it's going to get out there eventually.
Sure it will.
Mm-hmm.
Of course it will come out eventually. But the question is, how does it come out? And the difficult part about that is, as long as you're controlling the narrative and we only have certain people speaking about this, that's where the trouble begins. Because what you're doing is you're putting a wedge in between the communication lines, that you can speak with certain people, but you can't speak with others. And, you take about a week ago, where Skywatcher's spokesperson basically came out and stated that they really want nothing to do with ufology. They don't want help. They don't want ideas. They don't want anything. They've got their list of things that they need to do because they feel they need to do it for credibility speaking. They don't want any of those tinfoil woo caps on people coming around. That's denial of history. Not everybody is like that, right?
Right.
It's like when you put everybody in one cup. Okay, I could use a number of political examples of this, right? But I'm not going to, because I don't want to make a political show. But there are dozens of things that we see all the time where people are, oh, you support that? Well, you must be this.
Yeah.
The accusatory retaliation. And that's what we're seeing with the UFO community as well. We're seeing that accusatory retaliation. Oh, you believe you're old school ufology? Yeah, we don't want you. You're way too tinfoil, way too woo for us.
Right.
Psionics is woo.
Yeah.
It's woo with computers.
Yeah.
And toys. Well, you got woo toys, you got woo computers.
Yeah. The dog whistle, for instance.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard me go off about that on the earlier show, but I did.
Go off on that. Explain to people who may not know what that is.
Well, with Skywatcher, they said they have a device. Basically, they said it's like a dog whistle that brings the craft in. And Tim and I were talking about it, and the only thing that we could come up with is something that was like a nuclear signal, because the UFOs seem to be interested in the nuclear weapons that we have. They've been around the bases and that sort of stuff, looking at that sort of thing, and shutting missiles off and turning missiles on, and the whole nine. So maybe they were using something of a nuclear signature to attract UFOs in. I don't know if that's what they're doing, but that whole thing, they said that they were getting as good of feedback from the UFOs as they were with the people that were doing the psionics. Like there was no difference between the two, which that may be the case, but to call it a dog whistle is they're a lot smarter than that, right? You call something a dog whistle and you're thinking something that has a very small mind, not something that knows exactly what you're doing. That when you ask them to flash, they flash. I mean, that's something that's so much bigger than we understand.
True. Very true. It is something that needs to be tested, needs to be done. But I will give credit once again to Jake Barber for responding to the tweet.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see a lot of that.
No.
And I think that's good on him for responding. Jeremy Corbell, notorious movie director, notorious researcher in this field, released another UFO video or two that comes from his source within deep of the Pentagon. These videos really are unimpressive.
Yeah.
Not to be insultive to Jeremy and his fantastic beard. Okay. But I like the fact that he's released something again. But one thing that I would say about Jeremy, he is very good at defending his information. Just once, I would like to see the video be the defense of itself, rather than Jeremy having to go on every media outlet and defend a speck in the sky. How do you feel about that? Because, look, a lot of people don't like Jeremy Corbell in this field. They feel he's arrogant. They feel he's pompous. And frankly, the guy has an ego where he just doesn't care. And I kind of admire him about that because I'm so not that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could be a little bit more that way. Maybe not to that extent, but a little bit more that way. And I like the way he defends his information. He's never given up his source. He's never given up where he's getting these videos from. And he works hard at that to keep, a journalistic view of it, even though he's not a journalist. But the videos, I just wish it was the video defending the video, if that makes sense. And not Jeremy having to get absolutely railroaded by people online, both ufologists, apologists, and others alike who say this shows us nothing, rather than a speck on a black and white screen. And he has to come, to use a hockey term, because I know Rob G loves it when I do that, where he has to drop the gloves and defend every video that he puts out. Your thoughts, Lee?
Well, frankly, I haven't seen the video. I haven't bothered to. And I probably will. I probably will next week. I'll probably watch it. But, I've seen so much of it, that sort of thing. It was like the whole jellyfish video where the craft was seen supposedly going in and out of the water, but we never got to see that footage at all. And so that makes me wonder, somebody could tell you something. Well, this is what happened. This is what we captured. But without seeing it, how do you know? Right. And as far as people getting on Jeremy about the stuff that he's coming with the best evidence that he's able to receive. He believes that he's getting this stuff from a credible source, and he's bringing it to the public and that's what he should be doing. I applaud him for that. That's great. That's fantastic. But you're only going to get bits and pieces of different information from, different pieces of video. So maybe you notice that this craft is doing something that the other Tic Tac wasn't doing, right? Maybe there's something that you can glean from that source, and help put that puzzle together. But it's going to take millions of pieces to actually put the puzzle together to figure out what's going on. And so it's just one more piece to put in. I don't think people should ridicule him for whatever he's bringing forward at all.
I don't think so either. But that being said, I think, he's been his own worst enemy, but that's for a conversation for another time. And sometimes people don't like brash, don't care what you think attitudes on people.
Yeah.
And I can understand that, but I do know that he is dogged with what he does But this is ufology, man. You don't need to have a chip on your shoulder,
No,
right?
I do.
No, but you're not arrogant.
No.
You're confident. You're not arrogant. You believe in yourself. That's all good quality.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm on the radio, I believe in myself. I believe in my abilities to run a
Yeah.
good show. That's just the way it is.
Right.
You have to have confidence in order to do what we do.
Yep.
But that being said, Lee, you still need to be able to produce.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? He's putting out the videos whether you like it or not.
Right.
And, it had been a while since he had put a video out. He puts another couple out. And he's going to get raked over the coals.
Part of that, Dave, is that he probably sees a lot of stuff coming out from like Skywatcher and other places too. And I do feel that some of these groups are rushing stuff out because they want to be part of that conversation as well.
Good point. And it all comes down to money.
Yeah.
All comes down to money and how much they can move the ball forward in really trying to make a living off of this. In the end, that's what it's about. They're trying to make the money. They want a part of the contract. That's not beneficial for the experiencers out there who just want one simple answer, not $1 million. They just want one simple answer. Why me? And that's what it comes down to. Why me? So we're going to see how it plays out. We're going to continue with the summoning talks. We're going to keep control of that. And that's what I love, being able to chat with you about this, Lee. You're such a level head, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I try to be. Even keel.
You need to grow a better beard, though. I will say that. Lee, thank you for coming on in for your Q&A tonight. As we say goodnight to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot rocking in the background with everybody watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking and singing out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat room tonight. YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X, #Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright with Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us. Because together, my friends,
make a mistake. We're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home.
I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Yes, the Wool Train has gone for the night. Soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for everyone. Good night, everyone. Good job, Extra Small.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yep. That's the way you roll around here in the Shire.
Down in the Shire. What was that, Tim Mothman? Don't read the chat, Dave and Lee.
Why?
I don't know. I'm trying to find the dirt right now.
Where did he say that?
He said that.
Is that Tim or his goatee? Is that Tim or his goatee?
I think it's Tim Mothman.
I know, but is it Tim Mothman or his goatee?
Oh no. Now I have to look at it closer.
I believe it's Sweet Robbie G.
Don't know. This
No.
Tim Mothman. Don't read the chat, Dave.
Oh, no, it's Sweet Robbie G insulting the greatest sport in the world.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, because everybody likes watching two basketball players fight, one underneath the net and the other one at half court. And they're doing this flailing thing. No punches. You ever watch a basketball fight? There's never punches. It's always this flailing of the arms, looking like those dancing dolls at a car dealership.
That's because their arms are so incredibly long.
Still throw a punch, though.
Oh, yeah. It's usually turns into a headlock and then down to the court they go. Well, my friend, I was able to get off work early today.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was nice. Had a class in the morning and was done by 9.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking awesome. Got
What'd you do
paid
with
for
your day? Because usually your day planner is filled every minute.
Oh my gosh. Well, I actually went back to work after the class and my boss was like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "I don't know, I'm laying out my guys." And he's like, "No, just leave. Just go home. You could have the rest of the day off. We don't need you." I'm like, "Well, thanks." I guess everybody else that took the class went home, so.
What kind of course?
This was a signaling class for cranes. So we have to get updated every once in a while, every 3 years, I think it is. We have to have the cert recertified for that stuff. So. Yeah, they keep changing the laws on us down here in Washington.
Of course they do. You live in regulation state.
Yeah, well, we've had a couple cranes fall, so they're really
ouch.
They're really, yeah. Not my company. No, but here in Washington, we've had a couple cranes fall. It's never happened with my company, thank God.
I used to work for this real dick of a boss. And this guy thought I was absolutely dumb. Okay.
Yeah.
So one day he decides it's going to be really smart to put up a scissor lift and put an advertising banner on that, like a vertical advertising banner on that scissor lift. I said to him, you need to slice some holes in that so that, like some of the U, like the letter U, so
Right.
that way you have flaps for the wind to get out. Otherwise, this thing's going to be like a sail and it's going to come right over.
Yep.
I told him that about 6 times. 2 days later, they moved the scissor lift to the corner of the car lot, and a windstorm hits while the middle school kids are walking on the sidewalk.
Oh no!
And the only thing that saved these kids from getting absolutely pummeled and possibly dying was that the car lot had these security posts, these rounded security posts that went about 10 feet apart, but they were like kind of up and then straight and then down.
Yeah.
And it hit that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it would have landed on about 8 kids. It ended up hitting 2 girls. One had to go to the hospital for stitches. The other one got a concussion. Yep. All because he didn't like me and thought I was stupid.
Oh.
Right? When all I was trying to do is save him a lawsuit, which ended up karma ended up getting him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's like some men you just can't reach.
Nope.
It's ridiculous. So what do you do with the rest of your day then?
Well, I went shopping, believe it or not. I went
How
and
many
got
more
some...
pillows did you buy today?
No pillows. No. We did grocery shopping. We went to Trader Joe's. Yeah, it was awesome. Bought a bunch of stuff to eat while I'm out hiking in the woods.
Oh yeah. Did
Oh,
you buy
yeah.
a new knife? You look like you bought a new knife.
Nope.
How much beef jerky did you buy?
4 bags.
You can't go hiking or out in the wilderness without beef jerky.
No, it's a staple.
It's
It
a
really
total
is.
staple.
And it's the teriyaki too that really gets me.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Teriyaki's good.
Yes, it is.
Teriyaki.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I hate though about beef jerky, and I'm addicted to beef jerky. Love it. Is when you get those really solid strands that get in between your teeth.
Yep.
Yeah. And then it's like in there for like 15 days.
I don't know about 15 days. We could probably use some floss and get that crap out.
No, because it only happens when you don't have floss around, man.
Oh, man. If you're out in the woods and you got beef jerky that gets stuck in your teeth, you can whittle yourself a frickin' toothpick.
Oh, I understand that. I hear you.
Oh, yeah.
Been there. Been there.
Yep.
You don't have to like it. Just got to deal with it.
Yep. That's correct.
How did Tim James's sleep thing go? Did you talk about that?
He said he did pretty good. It was rough for him, though, because he had all the wires and everything attached to him.
Yeah.
He said it was hard to get comfortable with all that stuff, and I told him, I was like, I'm probably next up on that list to get that done. I've woken myself up a couple times in the middle of the night, just, from either I stop breathing or I'm snoring real loud.
Telling you, man, it's one of the greatest things I ever did was take that sleep test.
Yeah.
Yeah. True story.
All right.
True story.
Well, I'll probably have to do that so I can get some better sleep. Anyway, I am going to get off of here.
Yeah, get the hell out of here.
And I'm going to go take a shower.
You guys ever notice that when Lee's on the air, he always wears the same shirt?
What are you talking about? I am wearing this.
Funny? You know what's funny is when I created that shirt, I didn't realize the logo was going to be that big.
It's nice and big. I love it.
It's big. This is a big fucking logo right there.
Looks good.
It does. It does.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody. I'm going to cut up this audio tomorrow. But you guys all have a good night. I want to say a big thank you tonight to our mini super chatters, from Tim to Crave Dog to Richard to Pam to Len to Human Carl to T-Bone my man to Deidre to Gizmo and Area 53 for a wonderful, wonderful show tonight. Thank you for making it special. I will be back on Monday night with, who's my guest? Chloe de Chevigny. What are we talking about? Star Seeds. Oh, that's going to be good. It's going to be good. Star Seeds. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend, everybody. Don't forget Sweet Robbie G this weekend on the big show. And next Friday, Extra Small will be here as well. Talk to you soon, everyone. Good night, Lee.
Good night.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.